So when Tom and I first got married, we didn't want to pay for cable, obviously, right? So we had a DVD player and we had the full box set of Friends, and we would watch those DVDs over and over again. And one of my favorite episodes was when Phoebe and Joey find out that Rachel's pregnant, and they had already known, but Ross comes in and he tells them, Rachel's pregnant, and they like overreact, and then he goes, with my child. And Phoebe goes, this is brand new information. And it's funny because like they already knew, right? And Ross is like, you know. But I think what's so great about that is so often this is what happens to us with decluttering. We set aside a big chunk of time, a Saturday, a vacation, something where we are gonna get serious decluttering done. And what happens? Something hijacks it. Someone gets sick, the pet gets sick, we get sick, something else comes up. Or on the off chance we actually do get to have that time and we get to declutter, we get distracted with something else, we lose steam, we get overwhelmed with decision fatigue, and by the end of the weekend, we look back and we say, why does this always happen? It always gets hijacked, right? And we act like this is brand new information, but the problem is, it's not brand new information, right? If you are busy, if you don't have a lot of time, it's how it usually goes. And so today I wanna talk about how can we still get our house decluttered if we don't have a lot of time. I'm gonna talk about time today, but you could interchange energy with that too. If you don't have a lot of time, or if you have energy limitations, how can we still get our house decluttered? Let's talk about that today. Well, hi, I'm Dawn from The Minimal Mom, and I love sharing tips and tricks to help you simplify your house so that you can regain your sanity, so you can enjoy life again, so you can enjoy time with your kids, or have the space to pursue the things that really matter to you. And so we've been living as minimalists for about 7 years now, and it's awesome. It just keeps getting better and better. So I want to share that with you too. But I do know that time and energy limitations are a real thing. But what's so funny is that it's like chicken and egg, because if you're super busy, you especially need a simplified house, right? Like you just need it to run smoothly on autopilot and not have to be stressed out by all the stuff around you. And so it's hard because if you're busy, you don't have the time to declutter, but you need it the most. And all right, so I'm gonna channel sometimes I just feel like I need a marker board, right? So let's start here at the top and let's put our problem, no time. And like I said, I'm gonna use this interchangeably with energy. So, no time. This is usually when I realize too if I actually did the back of my hair today. I think I kinda did. All right, okay, no time. So if we don't have any time, what do we need? What we need is a house that is disaster proof. So what I mean by this is that it's impossible for our house to get to a point where it takes multiple days to recover from. So if I don't have a lot of time or energy, I need my house to be very easy to maintain so that even if we go a couple days without tidying and picking up and cleaning up, there's stuff everywhere, I know in the back of my mind, that's actually not gonna take that long to put it back together. It might look like a mess, right? But it's disaster proof in the way that it won't take very long to put it back together. And how do we get there is by low inventory. And so we talk about inventory all the time, right? That how much do I want to personally manage? And so how we're gonna talk about inventory today is in relation to disaster proofing our house. So what do I mean? If the kids pull out all of their toys, how long does it take to pick it back up again? So we had shown, like when our kids are like growing out of toys, and it's so sad, so sad. But I had shown like our toy bins before, right? So let's say the kids dump out every single toy bin, they're all over the floor. Well, how long does that actually take to pick up? It doesn't actually take that long because it's not actually that many toys. It'll look, if you walk into the room and everything's all over, it's still gonna look like a hot mess, right? It's gonna look like a huge disaster. Like Tom would still come home and be like, what is going on here? Start picking up, right? But I know when I look at that it'll take, I don't know, 5 minutes to clean up, 10 if I make them do it on their own, like 5 if I pitch in or Tom pitches in. In the past, when I would look at the whole toy room or the family room that had all the toys like lining the walls, I knew that like I might be able to pitch them into toy boxes and stuff and like kind of like shove it all up against the wall, but it wasn't clean, it wasn't tidy, it didn't feel good, right? And that it would have actually taken hours to organize and sort through their toys and make it look presentable again, right? So this is what I'm talking about, that how we get to a disaster-proof home is to limit the inventory so that even if everything in my entire house got pulled out, that it's still not gonna take a lot of time to get the house back in order, to get it to a place where everything's tidied up, someone could come over and not think we had been robbed, right? And again, my goal wasn't so people could stop by unannounced, it was for me. It was so that we could live in a peaceful place and I could regain some of my own sanity and brain space. But I like that idea of like, could somebody stop by as just like a barometer to how clean or picked up is the house. So again, I wanted to get to this point of disaster proof where doesn't matter, you can pull out every single thing out of every cupboard, drawer, cabinet, whatever, and it will not take a long time to put back together. And that's still how our house is now. I mean, there are days when you could walk into our house and be like, it is a big mess in here, right? Because nobody's tidied or picked up for the whole day. And you'd be like, whoa. But what's so incredible is that within 15 minutes, it's all put back away and somebody could stop in and be like, oh wow, your house is so nice and tidy, right? So again, not my goal, but my barometer for how disaster-proof is my home. So again, when I had no time, this was my goal, to disaster-proof my house. And I realized that the best way to get there was to have low inventory. So then the question comes in, how do we get to a point of low inventory if we have no time, right? I get this, Dawn, right? I'm tracking with you. I've watched your videos. I understand this concept of inventory and not wanting to have so much to manage, but I don't have the time to declutter or simplify. So what do? I'm so glad that you asked. So like I said at the beginning, we often glamorize these big chunks of time, this whole Saturday, this week of vacation I have coming up where I'm gonna dig in and I am gonna declutter my whole house, or a big chunk of it, right? But what's the problem with that? We get decision fatigue. It is a real thing. Or we wake up that morning and I don't feel like it. The sun's not shining, it's kind of rainy. I don't feel like decluttering today. If we're putting all of our eggs into that basket of those big decluttering sessions, and then something comes up that makes it not possible, whether it's something outside of my control or just my own attitude for that day, then it's shot, and now here I have to go another week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks before I have this big chunk of time again. And I love this quote by James Clear because I think it ties in perfectly. He says, it's so easy to overestimate the importance of one defining moment and underestimate the value of making small improvements on a daily basis. So again, this idea that I'm gonna have these big decluttering sessions and that's how I'm gonna get my house decluttered. But what really creates the change is these small improvements on a daily basis. They're not glamorous though, right? And let's face it, for most of us, we know how hard it is to start a new habit. So now I feel like I'm stuck in a hard spot again, right? And so now I have to figure out, how do I get into a daily habit of decluttering? And so what I would challenge you with is to try and find 5 minutes every day to declutter. But here's what we have to keep in mind when we're doing this. 5 minutes isn't gonna make a huge difference. When I look at how much I declutter in 5 minutes, it's not a lot. And so it's very easy to discount it and say like, yes, I get where you're going with this, but really you should see my house, right? But here's what happens is when we commit to doing 5 minutes, it's not about the stuff leaving our house, it's actually about the mindset. I'm gonna draw a brain, kind of. It's actually about the mindset being developed. So recently I had the opportunity to play the men's game with my Facebook decluttering group. I had actually never done it before, but what it is, it was developed by the Minimalist, and what you do is each day of the month, like on the first of the month, you declutter one thing, on the second, you declutter 2 things, and so on throughout the month, where towards the end of the month, you're getting rid of 21 things on one day, 22 things the next day, and by the end of it, depending on how many days of the month, we did it in April when there was 30, it ended up being 465 items that left your house. But what was so cool about it was the habit and the mindset shift that happened around our stuff as we did it. I did it with them. I didn't make it to the full end because we didn't have that much stuff, but everyone was commenting and they're like, wow, I am looking at this stuff so differently in my house now. So you might want to do that. They encourage you to like find a partner to do it with. I'll put a link down below. But again, it was about the mindset being developed by doing this every single day. And what happens is we look at the stuff in our house differently, and we start to constantly be like evaluating the stuff around me. I noticed for myself when I was doing it, like I'd be in the bathroom like one day and I'm like, okay, I gotta find 3 things today, and I'm finding my 3 things, and I'm like looking at some of the other stuff in the drawer and I'm like, oh, I'm coming back for that tomorrow, right? Like, okay. And you start having this awareness of where the clutter is in your house, but also you are building up your decluttering muscles. We talk about this. It's kind of like if you work out, if you just work out once on Saturday for a couple hours, and then don't work out again until the next Saturday or the following Saturday because there was like a baseball tournament or whatever, you know, that your kids had to go to, you're not developing your muscles, right? So this is very similar in that you're strengthening this mindset of detaching from our stuff, of this habit of letting stuff leave our house consistently. And you really start, like, by the end of the month, you really develop this like aversion to stuff. You're like, this is wasting my time, it's wasting my energy. I mean, it's so cool that I've been doing this all month, but I could be using that time for something else, right? I don't want to maintain this stuff anymore. And so by the end of the month, you're just like, get this crap out of my house. I don't want it anymore. And I don't think we ever get to that point when we do these big bursts of time less frequently. You might be able to, possibly, but I really think to really get to that point of like despising your stuff, it's this daily habit and creating that. So one way is to do the Mins game. They have a like a game board you print off, and like I said, if you can find someone else to do it with you, you're usually much more successful at it. But the other thing is that you could just set a timer. I would recommend doing it in the morning when you have more energy. I don't know about you, stuff I put off towards the end of the day just often doesn't get done, right? So maybe first thing in the morning, you're just gonna go around and look for 5 things to declutter. You might involve your family with it. You might make a game out of it. You might say, okay guys, like we need to find 5 things, quick, go, right? See how quickly we can do it. But however you go about it, I want to tell you, it's not as hard as weight loss, right? I don't know if it's just me, but I often think of like new habits I want to develop, like, well, I tried to lose weight and it didn't work, right? Like, it's not like that. I think you're gonna find that within a couple days of doing it, it actually is like a fun challenge. You are like, challenge accepted, game on, let's get this junk out of our house. And so that's why I know, like, I know starting new habits is hard, but I feel like this habit in the grand scheme of habits is actually fairly easy to develop. So I don't want to set you up for failure, right? I'm all about setting you up for success. And I really feel like this is something that you can stick with, again, if you have limited time or you have limited energy. And the other thing too, as we're developing this habit and as you are looking at the stuff to declutter in your 5-minute sessions, is what I really want to encourage you and remind you is that if I don't have any time now, I'm going to draw a clock. Right? So if I don't have time now, I'm likely not gonna have more time in the future. I mean, we think like, oh, if I get my house decluttered, I'm gonna have more time. But speaking from experience, even once we got our house decluttered, we still had kids and we still had a very full life. So it's not like I was then just like sitting around on a Saturday afternoon like, what will I do with my time today, right? It still gets filled back up. And so I know often we hang on to stuff thinking like, well, when I have time for that, right? When the kids are a little older, when it's summer vacation, when I go on vacation, when I do this, then I'll have time. I really want to encourage you that if you don't have time for this stuff now, like 99% sure with confidence, I can tell you, you're not gonna have time for it in the future. Now, we might pick like one thing, one hobby, one craft, one something or other, like I'm gonna keep my quilting stuff because I do think I'll have time for that. Okay, but I'm not gonna have time for quilting and crocheting and for rubber stamping and for cross-country skiing and you know what I mean? So like maybe pick one thing that you're hoping to have time for, maybe books you wanna read or a hobby, but beyond that, if we don't have time for it now, I just really want to encourage you that I don't think you're going to have time in the future. And again, if our goal is to get to a disaster-proof house, I just really want to encourage you to let that stuff go. It's hard. We've spent money on it. We have these like really rosy thoughts of the future. But if we're truly hoping to get to this disaster-proof house, you're probably gonna have to let some of that go. But here's what I'll tell you. Do you know what comes with letting that stuff go? The stuff that you were hoping someday to have time for? Do you know what comes when you finally get rid of that? Peace of mind. Guilt has left the building because I don't have to look at it anymore and be reminded of it. I can't believe how much that stuff that I was hoping someday to get to, how much it hung over my head, how it bothered me, it like ate away at me that I'd spent money on it, that I wasn't using it. I let that stuff go and my brain like felt so much better. It was so much happier when I didn't have that stuff hanging over my head. And so I know it's not always easy, but if you are doing these 5-minute chunks at a time, and maybe you're getting rid of it a little bit at a time, you're gonna get to a point where it's not so hard and you're gonna get there. I just can't emphasize enough how powerful this daily habit of decluttering is. And so doing whatever you need to get into that habit, doing the men's game, setting a reminder on your phone, asking a friend to help hold you accountable, sending someone pictures every day of the stuff you're decluttering, getting your kids involved, saying like, every day that we do this successfully, I'll pay you $1. Like whatever we gotta do. But it is so worthwhile. It is so worthwhile. And it's gonna make your house easy to take care of. It's gonna make it enjoyable. So as we clear it out, as we disaster proof it, which is so fun, I think you're gonna find that you really love your house again. You like being there, and you might even like your family members a little better too. So I hope this helps. Another video that I did recently that I think might be helpful was the power of 5 minutes. That was actually one of my favorite videos I've ever done. So I'll definitely link to that, as well as 5 tips to declutter faster. I thought those were pretty good too, if I do say so myself. So I will link to those down below. But if you haven't done so already, I hope you subscribe so that we can spend more time together. I know you can do this. Like I said, I will not set you up for failure because that's not cool and that's not what friends do, right? So I know you can do this. I'm so excited for you. I hope you have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.